Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, we don't want to go to war today.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
All right, get hyped, kids. It's Ring of Power episode 6. Yeah!
Oh my god.
I have to feign excitement to drag you people across the finish line to talk about this flippin' show.
What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people? Hey.
I am like a fake review.
Denizens of the internet.
Well, I'm like a fake reaction video where I'm acting like I'm really excited about something when I feel nothing inside.
Whoa.
Whoa.
I think the only thing I feel most of the time when I watch these episodes, I feel apathy or disgust.
Oh.
Sometimes hate.
Sometimes hate. Well, this episode 6. Maybe our fortunes have changed. Maybe the excitement and the interest, and maybe they've written something great. Who knows? We haven't gotten into episode 6 yet, but we are going to.
There's like 3 episodes left.
We unfortunately had a horrifically long conversation about rings last week. And that was mostly my fault. Mostly. Look, there was logical inconsistencies in the ring story. All right.
Yes.
And in this show, no. How could you say that?
I'm going to go out on a limb and claim that there are issues in the writing of this show. However, we do start out. Yes, Ross.
How could you say something so controversial yet so brave?
It's so brave.
True.
I am, in a way, Jesus.
Oh.
I am the Rings of Power Jesus reviewer.
No, oh no, he's getting an ego. Uh-oh.
Well, by the end of this, I'm on a cross. I've died for your critic sins.
Well, those two showrunners of theirs, McKay and Payne or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to put you on that cross. Let's make no mistake.
Yeah, I know. Well, we start out with our boy, Arendir. A lot of smoldering looks in his giant.
Oh, dude! Every time he
yeah.
rolls up on screen, I just think of Zoolander every single time, and it makes me so happy.
Also, look at the
steel.
face on his armor there. That's the first time I've noticed it. Look
It's
at the
been there
face.
the whole time.
It's
Yes.
Val. It has been there since season 1.
I know. I haven't noticed it till just now.
You didn't notice the Great Deku tree on his chest?
No. I was like, I'm seriously starting this episode. I'm like, wait a minute.
She was constantly distracted by his smoldering good looks.
Oh,
I know. I was like,
he is
I was
a
looking at
handsome
that
man.
fade.
So Ross, I've got something for you in vain of Silver's lack of paying attention. So we're watching it the other day, me and my mother, because we're watching it together because she suffers alongside me, as my mother would. Yeah, and we're watching it.
Misery loves company.
And I make a comment, criticize. I can't remember what exactly I was talking about, and I was like, "Oh, so, what do you think?" And she goes, "I don't understand why this goo monster is trying to make these rings or attack people." And I was like, "Sauron?" She's like, "Yeah, what is he about?" And I was like, "He's the giant flaming eye in Lord of the Rings." And she goes, "He is?" So she's seen Lord of the Rings multiple times. She knows the name Sauron. And I don't think this is an incompetence issue. I think this is such a problem with the show that at no point is that character presented as scary or a threat in any way. That she doesn't even connect the two, that they could be even related. Because Sauron is like an existential dread in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, totally.
And this
Yeah.
show, he's just some incompetent goo monster.
Oh my god, that is awesome. I mean,
It's
and
pretty
it is.
good.
It's super indicative of how they've written him, and it's just like in the Star Wars sequels, where Finn is probably the biggest drop ball of those 3 films. Sauron's got to be of this show, right? I mean, they had the opportunity to make a really
You're
interesting
right.
and really like kind of scary guy, like not in a physical sense, but like
In a literal, yeah.
yeah, like, and they just couldn't do it. Like they just.
I mean,
Ugh.
it's gotten a little bit better this season
Yes.
with showing him as the manipulative schemer.
Yeah.
Bad
But
at
he
it,
still
but
has
sure.
no. Yeah, but he still has no. There's still no threat to him.
No, there's no peril involved with him.
No,
Like there's no.
none whatsoever.
Well,
I mean, honestly, there's more of it in again because they copy all these prestige shows from 20 years ago. I mean, God, there's more of that in The Sopranos with Tony, where like he's he's someone that he's like on one hand he's likable in a sense and you root for him, but he's a very scary man. He's not, you shouldn't trust him as a real person. Like it's not good.
Well, and my issue isn't even just the incompetence in presenting him as an existential threat. It's that characters act like he's this great terror that they haven't paid for. That they haven't shown us that he's as scary as characters like, oh, but Sauron is there. It's horrible. We need to stop him. And it's like, why? As far as I could tell, he's kind of a slightly incompetent, unsuccessful, ambitious. He's like a guy who's a middle manager who wants to take over the company.
He's Michael Scott of Lord of the Rings.
Sure. and yet characters act like he's a big threat. And I was like, but you haven't sold that threat. You haven't given us any indication. So when Galadriel sits there, it's like, we must stop him. He's horrible. And it's like, but you're talking to in a meta way to an audience that already understands that Sauron is this horrible, like force of evil that is influencing things and trying to destroy the world. Instead, he's just a guy. And you haven't even presented that guy as particularly competent or evil in any capacity.
No, and that's I think the thing that frustrated me the most with this beginning of this second season was they didn't even pay off the reason why Adar hates him. Because they talk about in the first season how he was doing all these horrible experiments on these orcs and just being really cruel to them. Well, they killed him before he had the chance to do that in this season now. So it's like, oh, like they cut their own knees out from underneath them every time they get anywhere. It's incredible. This show should be studied deeply by film schools because it's kind of incredible.
It is. Well,
an example of what not to do.
Yes.
Example of what not to do. I don't have chat attached to the Rings of Power review, so I apologize, but I am paying attention. And Sage makes a comment. I really wish they had leaned into his perfect tendencies, the trait that caused him to leave the elf-heaving Morgoth. I agree. There should be some sort of... Here's the problem with writing. You can't write a character that's clever and suave and manipulative and whatnot if you're not smarter than the person you're writing. You know what I mean? So it's like when you write... When freaking somebody writes a detective and that detective is really clever, the writer has to be smarter than the character he's writing in order to think up the ways that the logic that the detective uses. And I don't think the writers are very clever and capable enough to write a character that's smart enough to be as suave and manipulative and as capable as they seem to think that they're creating, because he isn't presented that way. That's not what we're getting.
Yeah.
I mean, the entire first season, Sauron was doing nothing, basically.
Yeah, he was the reluctant hero.
Yeah.
Sympathetic. Well, lest we point out that there's a moment in this season after his betrayal that he almost has this emo, hair across face, like teary-eyed. I've been betrayed by those close to me. My parents don't understand me sort of moments. I'm
Yeah.
not wrong. Like it is such a
you're
weird
right.
moment where he's like this tortured emo kid where he's upset about what had transpired. And I was like, you're the Dark Lord of Evil. Like, I don't like why are you like emo about the circumstances you find yourself in?
It's so lame. Oh, God. I mean, after giving a Farquaad speech, I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, my God.
When he was reborn, he should have been furious. Absolutely furious. He should have been railing against Adar and been like, I'm going to cut off your head and I'm going to eat out your eyeballs, all that stuff. He should have roared at the heavens kind of thing. Instead, he was like, I'm a little sad.
I'm really sad. Well, and his plan should have been so clever that the audience doesn't understand the full machinations of his until they come to fruition. Almost like the creation of Mordor, where you put a sword into a dam.
A heroine sword.
It should have unfolded as the audience would, oh my God, wow, that's so clever. He had this plan all along. Look at as it reveals itself unto us. But the problem is you can't write that if you're not clever enough to write that. You can't make a character that's brilliant if you're not that brilliant. And they are not that brilliant.
Well, and
Even
the
with
show
their
almost has a
IQs
way
combined.
the show almost has a way of writing where it almost feels like they're writing from week to week, even though you know they're not. It's
No.
the strangest. The show is so bizarre in that sense. I don't understand it.
This show was season 2 was written like a couple years ago.
Yeah, but it. Well, anyway, it's just kind of nuts that even though they should have had this planned out much better, even if they shifted ideas after the first season, like it feels like it's written from week to week. It's just so odd that way. I don't know. The show's bizarre.
You know, there's an interesting thought, and I've seen it pointed out. Do you remember Círdan?
Well, yeah, vaguely. I know he had a ring and he's a boat guy.
Like one person who is extremely important to the story we haven't thought about or heard about for a while now. You
Thank
remember
God I
Círdan?
see more of Tom Bombadil, though. Thank
Yeah.
God for that.
This is like sitting there going, it's like, wait, he was a character, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Very
What happened to
briefly.
What happened to that guy? He's got one of the rings of power. What's he doing?
Maybe he died in the Barrows Downs like that black elf. Maybe he's dead there too.
The Downy
Why not?
Barrels.
Yeah.
What?
Listen, we can't get into this right now, Red. All right, I can't do this with you. I want to so bad, but this show is so
Recorded,
bad.
we
But
can't.
oh my God, we are being recorded.
Well, you shut up.
Yeah, just like the orc says.
Anyway, so he heroically just wrecks these orcs in an awesome way, like no-look stabs and all of that.
Can I just say, this episode had a couple of very interesting cuts in the editing. This is the first one I noticed right off the bat here, where there's the orcs he's looking at far away, and then the one that ambushes him from behind, and he's taking care of it. And then, rather than have an insert shot of like the orcs running towards him, or even just when you cut back to him and they are suddenly upon him, having them like move into frame with some inertia or act like they're panting, they're just there. They're just suddenly there. They teleported across the glade.
Space and time.
And not even when dealing with traveling distances, but literally distances of like 10 meters. The show is insane. There's another one later, and that one genuinely made me laugh out loud, and I will make sure to point it out.
You giggled to yourself there.
Oh, it was great.
To reiterate, this show loves Arondir. They think he's so freaking cool.
They want him to be their Legolas.
Did anybody else find this scene kind of dumb?
Well, it's
Like-
fucking pointless.
It's an excessive action scene to show how cool he is.
Yep.
Yeah, but it goes nowhere, and it serves.
Well,
no
he
purpose.
finds a little scrap of something in a gauntlet.
Right, but we are not given any information on what that is, so we don't know if
No.
it's a good thing, a bad thing. It's a mystery box, and there's
It's
too many
a
of them.
river. There's a mountain.
Oh
It
no!
could
Look,
be-
it's Eregion.
A Region, but he could have said something. Why did the orcs have a map of a Region?
Well, by the way, what would a sketch of Eregion to be for an orc? That doesn't give them
Yeah.
direction or how to get there. like, I don't mean to be a dick about orcs, but I don't think they're smart enough to have this beautiful charcoal drawing be of any use to them.
Well, and it doesn't seem like an orc would have drawn this.
No, so
Right.
like Adar's handing out little handouts like a
Yes.
substitute teacher.
Oracle maps.
It's
The
Adar's
forbidden
pastime.
city.
He was going to be an artist before Morgoth twisted him.
Okay.
This is MapQuest for orcs.
Yeah.
Well, we're at the tower, and Arendir's done for the episode.
Hope you liked him. He's
Literally
gone.
served no purpose.
And we get Celebrimbor, who was tortured over the creation of the rings for men. He's desperate.
Oh my god! I have another thing to point out. This scene when he threw that little hunk of junk into the other pile of junk. Why the fuck is there a mouse? That's metal. You would show a mouse when you're showing there's a whole bunch of like edible garbage on the ground. Why is there a rat or mouse hanging around a forge? Like, anyway, I'm sorry. That really bothered me. Like it's
not in the kitchen, but at the very top of a tower that'd be very difficult to get to for a mouse.
like hanging around aluminum shavings, essentially. Like he's
Yeah.
hanging out in the trash part of a CNC machine. Like what?
He likes the shinies. Like a
What the
pack rat.
Yeah, like apparently this is also the secret of Nim.
Yeah. Are we
We're
going to
just-
get
Yeah.
a really scary
Wherever they
owl with glowing eyes?
Oh my god, covered in cobwebs.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. At any rate, they're addressing a problem that Celebrimbor's, he's a little off. He's getting really ornery, ill-tempered, if you will, and things haven't been going super well for him.
Bad memory.
He's frustrated with his inability to create these rings for men. And seems to have forgotten Proxy Galadriel's name.
Just like the
I'm
rest
going
of
to be
the
honest,
audience.
I don't know what her name is, except for the fact it says Mirdania in the corner here. So I also forgot. But the implication is that his mind is going because he forgot her name.
Can I just be a dick for a minute?
Yes.
I don't know nothing about no elves in Tolkien other than they're
You're just a
snobby
simple
douches.
country boy.
I am, who likes dwarves and not elves. To me, this seems not outside the realm of reality for a man who is so good at what he does and the ruler of a city to forget a peon's name. But
Well, an
that's
artist
just
that's
me.
hyper-focused.
Like, I don't mean to be rude, but that's a really
it's like
dumb
the aide
point
comes
they're
in and he's
making.
like, "Who are you?"
Yeah, like, okay. I don't know.
But the
just
show
something
wants you to think that his mind's going. That there's
Yeah.
trouble in the land of Celebrimbor, Kellogg's
Yes.
Blueberries.
I thought that as a way of showing his instability here, that it was appropriate because she's been working with him for so long that she's more than just that person who brings coffee to the office.
You're probably right.
But Jason, how do we know it's been so long? It could have been 2 hours
That's true.
or 200 years in this show. We
We
don't
have
know.
No idea.
Well,
The
there's
only
some-
reason-
I would say it's been at least 6 episodes or so.
The only reason we know it hasn't been centuries is the humans are still alive. That's it. And who knows? Maybe none of these scenes actually interconnect. They're all on their own timeline. I have no clue.
We'll find out that the centuries.
I don't wanna
have
go
passed and that They
backwards.
were just trying to interweave this stuff.
Right. I don't want to go backwards. But last episode, remember when they did the wink and a nod to the door of Moria?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
There's one thing I had thought of, and I was watching another podcast, and I realized it was like, why would you make it here? How are you going to get that out?
Literally, like, oh, so does this take apart, or
Like, wouldn't
is this just a
my
sample?
assumption is it would be carved into the side of the mountain. What are you going to
Yeah,
glue it in, or
Yeah, they're going to use granite nails.
Yeah, attach it to the mithril
Oh.
hinge.
You know what they should have done? They should have had a Zoolander moment, had like a scale model of it, and then had
Oh my
how are you going to
gosh.
fit
Totally
this
not-
inside of the mountain?
yeah, like it needs to be at least 3 times this large.
But that was a thought
For
I had.
children who can't read. What
Well,
would
and
be good?
The problem with that scene is they're trying to progress a lot of events because there's a lot of cooperation and co-building things between the elves and the dwarves. And he's like, look, I can make stuff with the moon and whatnot. But this happens over like hundreds, 1,000 years. As opposed to, we don't have much time because we are going to wreck this place really soon. So they have to get through all of the winks and the nods to the lore that would have been happening over a long period of time of cooperation between elves and dwarves. And now it's just like, well, remember the door? You remember that door? It's like, why is it inside the building?
Well, yeah, in that building, how are they? Oh, Rhett, this show has melted my brain so much I didn't even think of that.
How'd they get it down the stairs? And yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, it's at the top of the tower there.
just
They-
a
they
series
probably-
of winches that they descend it from the window.
they
and it was
probably
like, what
chipped the marble stairs going down there.
Well, it wouldn't have been easier to just build it onto the side of the mountain into the rock.
Yes, it would.
You know what? Maybe that's why the Watcher of the Lake or whatever. Maybe that's why he broke it so easy.
Was it the
It's because
gorilla
they-
glue that they used to attach that thing?
It finally wore out after centuries.
Gorilla glue is strong, not against time.
Not against time and a giant squid monster, you know?
Yeah. A giant Cthulhu monster, a giant Japanese
lake
anime
kraken.
character. Well, Anatar comes over to talk to him, good old Charlie Vickers. And he's talking about this troubles he's having, forgetting things, struggling with his memory. And he's like, I don't remember where I put my hammer. And Anatar's like, it's right there. I'm sorry, Sauron. At any rate, they're definitely emphasizing the mind is going of Celebrimbor.
Yes.
And
I-
he... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, it's like, well, he's like, your people need to hear from you, and we haven't had mithril from the dwarves in a while, so he's like, I'll go talk to him, and I'll deal with the mithril, because I'm really awesome at persuading people.
Wait, where was this kind of Sauron last season? That's the one note I
That's what I'm
had
talking
about
about.
this. Instead, he was just a character who was acted upon by much stupider people. And you could have had him be even just a little bit like this. It would have been slightly more believable. It's so bizarre.
Well,
I don't get it.
I see this as mostly just a horrifically missed opportunity, because you could have a really fascinating story of Sauron sort of manipulating the people around him. But the manipulation he doesn't seem so clever as it's like, oh, I'm manipulating Celebrimbor. And it's like, well, show that to me. Instead, Celebrimbor has memory problems and he's kind of questioning stuff, I guess.
I will say, at the end of this episode, I mean, granted, they pointed it out already, so it's not, but what they were apparently going to plan on doing, or maybe this is just a red herring, that would have been kind of clever, and I'll point it out again when we get there, but
Sure.
because they pointed it out here instead of when it would have happened, it ruins it. But anyway, well, when we get there, I'll point it. I mean, it's very obvious. They spell it out for you, but anyway.
Yeah.
Well, he's even...
Sauron,
Go ahead, Jason.
Sauron here should have been gaslighting everyone from the start.
Yes.
I agree. It's just
Yeah.
a missed opportunity, and it's disappointing.
Does anybody else think it's kind of dumb that he basically told the orcs where he was.
Well, you're getting ahead of yourself
Possibly-
of like you're playing into his hands or whatever. I
Well,
mean,
what I-
whatever his plan is to tell the like
Right.
the assumption is my assumption is that he let the orc father, his name escapes me at the moment. No, Adar know where this is because he wanted them to show up.
Yeah.
Well, right. He wants them to show up, but at this point, he doesn't even have all the rings made.
Right. So my guess is he's pushing Celebrimbor to finish the rings before the orcs essentially level everything, so he could just have them, I guess.
That would be my assessment as well, but to me, it seems like he did it a little bit prematurely.
Well, you're supposed to believe that this is really clever, whereas if you were thinking about this sort of stepping back from it, it's like your timing is very close, and this could have gone really poorly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At any rate, he's reassuring everybody of don't be so butthurt about him being really beside himself. I don't know. Celebrimbor's falling apart.
Yes.
Anyway,
And he's just he's a troubled artist. Give him time.
they've been sending out patrols and only one soldier returned. And somebody carved a message into him. Let's see if I can get a shot of that.
You need to keep going.
There.
Where?
At any rate, somebody carved a message into him. It's probably in black speech, and it looks like old Anatar probably can read it. I find it curious that he says, don't tell anybody and bury the body when this is clearly out in the middle of the courtyard and everyone can see it. I don't.
Yeah.
The side. They had to go over to the gate.
Yeah, nobody goes over there. Why would you
Why-
ever leave? It's a beautiful elven city.
It's very obvious, this body, but I guess I don't know. I don't know. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
it's
get it.
very dumb.
Like, look at all these.
They don't even
people
have
over
him
here.
covered up, really, do they?
No.
No.
So it's
just
just
laying
Not
on
even
the
like a
cot.
wool blanket, nothing.
he's
just-
dead in like a weird sort of Renaissance pose on his side.
Yeah, like they don't even lay him flat on the the stretcher. Like, what the fuck?
He's in
Well,
recline.
if they laid him flat, it would have been harder to see what was carved into his chest there.
Yeah, he's turning
So they had
towards
to-
the camera so you could read the words.
Oh my
Which
god,
is
that is
dumb.
so lazy and stupid.
They totally could have done that way better.
I was thinking maybe the makeup, they figured out the makeup crinkled in an odd way, so they're like, you got to turn a little bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't look natural. And it's like, well, I mean,
No.
it doesn't look natural anyway, but okay.
But he does hear say to, because she asks him, what does that writing, what is it? Because she couldn't read it. And he says that the message is, where is he? So he could, but it makes no sense. Because for all they know, that they could be asking where Celebrimbor is.
Well, the elves don't know, but obviously the orcs are asking about Sauron because they're looking for him.
Right. But the thing is that because they should have said, where is Sauron? Something
Yeah.
of that nature.
Well,
Rather than where
it would
is
tip
he?
some information to
We
them that the
know.
writers don't want the elves to know yet.
Right.
Yeah, it's like this whole
But
idea is
this-
very preposterous anyway. Like, why are orcs doing that?
But the other thing is that there's one person in the entire town, apparently, that can read this message.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that he's
And
gonna
that's not
get
suspicious in any way.
it. Yeah.
There's a lot of look. There has to be a lot of willingly unwilling to pay attention to signs and issues. It's like Galadriel said, "Don't talk to him." Wouldn't she tell Celebrimbor why? I mean, we've talked about this, but it's like, I'm not going to tell you
Yeah.
Sauron. Don't talk to him. Oh, okay. It would have solved so many issues. But now it's like there's a lot of, and the assumption somebody who would defend this show might actually say something in the effect of, but Sauron is so good, he's able to cloud their minds and convince them not to think about other options. You're back writing stuff into the story that the writers weren't clever enough to put in. I would remind you. However, let's move on. He's like, I need to go. Well, they have this conversation about Celebrimbor, and he's got problems. And he's like, I need to go get some mithril. And he's got a little douchey look on his face. He's like, I'm pleased with myself. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can anybody see a reason why Anatar here, Sauron, is trying to hit on Mirdania?
Well, there's a few things. Shipping culture might think that he's still got a thing for Galadriel, and she's his she's this sort of faux Galadriel.
Surrogate.
The other option you might have is that he is manipulating her because she's easy to manipulate by sort of like tweaking her, sort of she fancies him and manipulating that aspect of her personality. That might be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean that's what I assumed it was, but I mean I know like that's what I would have assumed, and that's what I thought. But the reality is, let's be honest, it's shipping culture, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
Well, I mean, it could always come out later that he asks her to do something.
Yeah, I mean that's and hopefully that's what it is.
Well, she's like, "Of course I will," and she fans herself.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, and we're presented with a feast. A feast on a table for old Galadriel.
Would you eat berries that an orc had picked?
Well, see that's the point. So I have. This is going to seem overly nitpicky because we're talking about the food, but the food is presented as not as bad as one would assume an orc collection of food would be, which is weird because if we think about the Harfoots, they're eating bugs.
Yes, they are.
So
he's trying to convince her.
What, through manipulating her from delicately collected raspberries that have been washed and cleaned, and they're cooked
by orc fingers.
There are baked potatoes on this table.
Oh my god! No, I didn't see that. I just remember the meat, the berries.
I'm gonna get it. But there are baked potatoes on this table and cooked onions. So he just stabbed it to a baked potato, but there's another shot.
Oh my gosh. I've read this show so
I mean, the kind of connotation that you get from
see it?
From the
yeah.
Look how clean those berries are.
The orcs is that they eat raw meat.
Well, lest we remember that moment in Lord of the Rings where he crammed grog into Merry's like pie hole, and it was it looked like horror black molasses.
Yeah, and almost
here they are,
like kind of almost killed him.
Yes. Yeah. Fine.
Well, lest we forget,
they
have restaurants.
The only person who can cook in the entire orc army is Adar, because he used to be an elf. The rest of them,
nah. My guess is it's that family man.
Isn't that a thing?
He probably brought his wife, and she was the one that was doing the cooking.
Yeah.
Isn't this a thing in either Labyrinth or Legend, where they're like trying to convince the nice young woman to be on his side with like a feast like that? Isn't that a thing?
It's
Legend had it. Labyrinth might as well.
Yeah. Well, by the way, this woman is like thousands of years old. Like, would this work on her? Whereas, like, she's like 17 in Legend.
Well, I think what the story's trying to do is we've had you in captivity and you're starving. You're desperate for food. This will soften your resolve to resist me and my propositions. But she's like 1,000 years old, and I assume it's only been a day.
Yeah, it felt like a day to me.
Yeah.
when I
Well,
watched
once
this.
again, time and space are an issue with this show.
Or maybe it's been 3 months. I don't know. Who knows?
Who
Who
knows?
knows?
No, I kept expecting Adar there to grossly eat a tomato. I was waiting.
Oh my god.
The
That would have been a
Yeah.
great reference.
Wink. Sloppy eating a tomato. Apparently, tomatoes are a sign of like evil. In the
Eating
world.
them sloppily is, my god.
But this conversation is interesting because they have a back and forth between him and Galadriel, where there's suggestions that she's manipulated by Sauron and they can't trust what she is thinking. And she's very. We get a lot of Galadriel stink face return.
She resisted.
Yeah, in this conversation. A lot of dour looks. Oh, there are a lot of. She's almost emotional in this one.
Oh my god.
I know.
It's amazing.
But they talk about sort of how manipulative Sauron is and sort of how he's gotten into her head and what he's been doing to her. See, his eye bores a hole and the rest of him slithers in. Which, it feels like we're trying to get representation from her that she's doubting herself. Perhaps.
Which would be perhaps a character moment, I get. But see, they tried to do this before, and then they just ignored it.
I agree. But she is. There's a tempest in her.
Oh my god, is there? You better believe
That
it.
line will never die.
Well, it's just how manipulative Sauron is. This feels intentional to cast doubt upon her. Because obviously Adar is very familiar with Sauron. And
Yeah,
he
sort
stabbed
of his
him with a crown.
machinations. He did stab him with a crown. We get the crown justification, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Irresistible power. I'm playing with fire because I want to get the actual quote here. I suppose I could surmise, but he basically asks her, what did he offer her? And she said an army. And then the immediate reaction is, didn't you have armies? Weren't you in charge of the army of the North? Armies of the North?
That was her go-to line. I am Galadriel, commander of the armies of the North. Yeah.
But that wasn't what he offered her in season 1.
No.
Am I insane?
No, you're right. It was a relationship, and then we will rule the world together.
It was the promise to Luke, we will rule the galaxy together, sort of thing.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
in a
maybe
romantic
here she
sense.
Maybe she could be lying to him because she doesn't trust him. So why would I tell you what he was trying to give me?
I think she believes it.
I do too. I think the writers forgot what they wrote last season.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like army. Well, then the second question is, if she believes that she was offered armies, because that's what she desires the most, sort of thing, then the question is, well, why? Because your armies, like the purpose if you have an army would be to attack Sauron.
Yeah.
Well, so why would that be
That's her
tempting
thing.
to you?
You know, when you are now his homie.
Right.
Are they implying that that's what the ring she has is telling her?
She doesn't have
I
it.
don't think so.
But I mean, before though.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think
I
so
don't
either.
think
But that's
that-
the only way that would make any sense. It's still
You know-
stupid.
You know, I wonder if this is kind of an artifact. You know, they're doing the writing and the outlining for season 1, season 2, and so on. And at one point they're like, well, he would offer her this. And so they wrote that in, and then they changed the motivation later, and they
Oh.
didn't change it in all the places that it needed to be.
That
So what
would
we're getting
be-
here is in the first season they ended up shipping them, and in the second season where she's like, oh yeah, he offered me, you know, to make me his queen or blah blah blah. It's like, well, at the time I wanted an army, and so that's what he offered me.
Did they
And
not
that
watch
could
their
be why
show?
it feels so much like they write from week to week.
That would be incredible if that was if they just.
I mean, your proposition is possible, but that would have to involve an incredible amount of incompetence.
But just because of that, I want it to be
I wouldn't
true.
put it past them, but
I want that to be true, Jason. I can't. My rational mind cannot let it be true, but my heart wants it to be.
Can I just reiterate my issue with he promised her armies, and I was like, but why would she want those? They would be to fight him.
Yeah, exactly. Like, which makes me think that that's the ring. Like, again, the only way that makes sense is if it's the ring now telling her that, because they wanted more to go do this, but they couldn't get it, so they just had a little totally not the fellowship.
The ring had forethought to talk to her about it before she gave it up to give.
I have no clue. Like, that's what it, like, again, makes no sense. But that's the only way that line could make any sense. You know what I mean?
All right. Anyway, she asks him what he was promised, and he said children.
so
I just, hey Adar, you know they probably have orphanages you could go, and I mean maybe you had your manhood cut off in a horrible war or something. I don't know, but I don't.
There are orc women if you were so inclined.
I mean there are, and apparently they having children and loving them.
Does it require Sauron's like? Does Sauron have to be nearby, guiding his hips to get this accomplished? Is that the problem?
My God.
What, Ross? Artificial
horrible.
orc insemination?
I don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
it's not like they ever said that, because the elves were twisted by Morgoth that they couldn't have offspring, because we still have orcs. And apparently the orcs were the descendants of the first elves that were twisted by Morgoth. So, and the orcs call him father. They he treats them as his children. So, I don't.
He can't hook up with the orc women. Does he require an elven woman? Because he's got one.
Maybe. Who knows? This just doesn't make any sense.
With some prompt skincare, he might be seen as more desirable.
Prompt skincare. He got that Korean skincare routine. You know what I'm saying?
Anyway, he talks to her about how he killed Sauron with Morgoth's crown. Now, let's set aside this really quickly. I realize we talk about the lore a lot.
Yes.
And it's a problem because this show isn't following the lore. By the way, Morgoth was like 30 feet tall.
Yeah, he was huge.
So they at least did add a comment that he had modified it for himself after Morgoth's, I guess, loss, because he didn't really die. Because they imprisoned him, sort of thing. But essentially, so there were a lot of questions about how in the world should some crap orcs defeat Sauron, of all people. And I guess their explanation is because he stabbed him with Morgoth's crown that's magical, I guess, that it was enough to kill Sauron, but, well, not quite.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, most of the damage was him being shanked in the back, prison style, by the orcs. So I guess the argument is that the crown weakened him to being susceptible to orc stabs, or something.
He does say that if they take the power of the crown and they use it with the power of the ring, that they can destroy Sauron.
Well, right. But my point was addressing what's before. He does say it wasn't enough to kill him,
right?
And that he wants her help with the rings. But essentially, I was like, I was posthumous. I was
positing
that maybe the ring like popped his force bubble, and that's how the orcs got through. I don't know.
Oh,
but we were very confused as to how a bunch of orcs were able to defeat him, and I guess we were meant to imply or read into Well, that crown, I guess. But then the question is, why would you make a crown that's very stabby?
I'm going to make it so it can't hurt me.
Right. It's
By the way, I thought. I mean, I didn't know this. Obviously, I know this from someone else who may have been in the comments. I thought Morgoth's crown only had power because of Silmarils.
yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay,
Because
so we're just
it
changing.
was built to hold the Silmarils.
I guess we're changing that. That's fine, but it's like it's changing the magical item thing in this universe, which is very funny. But whatever.
But we at least do get an explanation as to how they were able to gooify him in the earlier first episode.
They gooed him.
They gooed him.
With their prison shanking technique.
Well, and then Sauron built this out of Morgoth's crown.
Yeah.
Basically, which is powerful enough to potentially kill him. Why would you make it so pointy?
Well, no, that's where he learned, right? Like this time, he's like, "I'm gonna make it rings so they can't hurt me."
Well, and then he put himself into a position where he's like, "You have to crown me and hold it above my head, where I'm mega vulnerable."
Yeah.
Why do you require a Dar to sanction you? Why can't you just put on the helmet yourself?
Yeah, he should have been wearing it from the beginning of his Farquaad speech.
Because that's the most vulnerable he was. Because it's like, if this thing could kill you, why are you giving it to another guy and then being like, I'm going to look down and be really vulnerable right now just to give you a shot?
See, the only way that would have worked is if, because this wouldn't have worked because we've never seen Morgoth, but where you have a scene like in a terrible movie where Morgoth is like dying and Adar's holding his hand, his giant house-sized hand or whatever, and he's like, "The crown, it can hurt Sauron. I don't trust him. Use it if you must." You know, in like a Lenin's last will and testament kind of thing about Stalin, like that kind of a thing.
Don't trust him. His mustache is mysterious.
And but we don't get that, so it just was like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Why did Sauron not know that? Like, apparently Sauron's an idiot in more ways than one.
And Sage does weigh in by saying, "Yep, no intrinsic power that I know of to the crown, nor that I am aware either." But basically, he's like, "I've got this crown. We could kill Sauron. You got a ring. Let's get together and make lots of money." He did refire it, he made it, and they used it to stab him. Which also alludes to, remember the trailers we had of her having a drag-out fight with Sauron and the crown?
Oh, God.
Oh, I don't want to allude, obviously that's spoiler, but it's a trailer.
Yeah, it's in a trailer, whatever. I'd forgotten that, by the way, and that is very funny.
Yeah. So here's a minor issue, and I'm going to bring it up on whether or not you guys care about. So Adar brings up the rings. How does he know?
I wondered that exact same thing. Like, is there the Middle Earth Herald that he read it in? What is the...
Does he have orc spies that can get close enough to overhear this?
Yeah, like, how would they get that close? How would the elves not immediately sniff it? Like, literally sniff them out. Not even like in a figurative sense. I mean, smell them.
The only thing that I could think of was that at some point when they were sending messengers back and forth between Lyndon and Eregion, that he captured and tortured someone.
But wasn't that the Downey Barrows or whatever?
Right. But because we didn't get that scene, we have to make that leap in logic. Otherwise, this.
So now you have to make an assumption that there's competence in the show.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing they've shown that would make it make any sense is the elves they sent out from Eregion to go see what the hell's going on. Those guys, where only one returned with a message scratched on his chest.
Yeah,
that's
somehow he captured somebody. But once again, because we never got the scene of him torturing some elf for the information, who knows how he got this?
Well, here's the problem, Ross, with your comment.
Mm-hmm.
He keeps her alive because of the assumption that he needs her with the ring to help kill Sauron, which happened before they sent the patrol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Anyway, he has designs to work with her to kill Sauron, and he has questions, which he gets a bunch of information from her that Halbrand is Sauron. Information about the rings. She confirms some things, which is she's really bad at what she does.
Yeah, she's not a very good general. It's a good thing she never got captured before. She'd be really bad. I mean,
well, it's like, hey, let's work together. Okay, I'm going to give you all this information. And then he goes, great, I have all the information. And she's like, but, and he's like, no, you told me what I wanted. Like, there was more trust in her face than one would have expected.
Consider, and like, by the way, like, she was gonna do horrible things to this guy before Halbrand stopped her. Yeah, like, why would you trust this man when you were gonna do horrific shit to him? Granted, maybe she doesn't realize because it's a different Adar. She doesn't recognize his face.
And was anybody else slightly bothered by the shackles he puts on? Because they just kind of clasp together.
Oh my god, yes.
There's no lock.
See, he just kind of closes it, and she's good.
And we're done.
This might seem nitpicky, but details one might have. Well, look, if you're going to do something like that for the sake of filming purposes, then you don't do a close-up shot.
No.
Just snap. It's like the shackles have a snap. They're a snap-on.
Yeah, snap on. You do a medium shot of him fussing with her wrist. That's what you do, and you can't see it. And then you add in the Foley later of chains clinking. That's all you got to do.
Which they failed to do.
Yeah, they didn't do that. They did this.
And their food preparation is so much more elegant than their forging of iron.
Would you like some delicious orc berries? They don't wash their hands.
No. Well, we're in Numenor now. Everybody's favorite place. Silver loves it. And Elendil is apparently held before Pharazôn for judgment of treason.
Yep.
Now look, I have issues. What did he do?
Well, they're just lying to everyone.
Okay. Because you could argue the one guy that was punching his kid, but Elendil was like, hey, let's calm down, just give us the totem and we'll leave. And then they held him back. Like, he didn't do anything besides that, as far as I can remember.
He punched he punched Pharazôn's kid in the face.
Okay, so that's execution.
And
his son is blaming everything on him. Like, we're going to blame you for the violence. I think he said that last episode.
Okay, so illegitimate claims.
He started it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Because I sat here thinking, really? Like, put to death for this?
Goddamn.
And apparently the crowd seems very rebel about the news.
I so far in the show, I have not disliked this actor that plays Elendil. Like, he's been fine. I don't have any particular issue with him. This scene was bad for him. The direction he was being given was bad. It made his character seem like kind of pathetic in a way that he shouldn't.
Well, and Elendil
like, he's just sitting there gawping.
Immensely noble of stature and inspiring, and people should. I mean, the guy's like 8 feet tall.
Yeah,
like,
it's very odd. Because the rest of the show that that I can recall, he's been fine for me. This scene though really bothered me. He seemed too pathetic.
I agree. Well, they demand he renounces his crime and hears his dutiful daughter just douching it out suddenly.
Oh my god, she's such a loathsome twat.
Well, they make demands of him.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jason. Why is she there? Just because you're banging this guy's son doesn't mean you're important.
She's a high status individual now.
Is she?
Apparently she went from being an artisan to being a politician.
An artisan's apprentice.
Yeah.
we
I
need
guess because she
girls
was there when the
instead.
actual king died, she's important now. I don't know. I don't understand.
I
Like,
mean, she should have been sure. Her dad is getting sentenced. She should be there. But
yes,
she
but
should be in the gallery, not
Not
up
the
on the
left hand
stand.
of his son.
I mean, like, I like how she's sitting there and like everything that she was raised, like this society that she was raised in. She would have to think as she's standing there amongst the people that are in charge as an apprentice artisan, going like, "Wait a minute, am I a part of a junta? Uh-oh."
Yeah.
Like, like I shouldn't be standing here. I am not of anyone of this kind of
Well,
importance. I
to
should
be
be out there in the
fair,
crowd.
She started this drama by stealing the Palantir and throwing it. Because the whole impetus of distrust of the queen was she had an item that is elvy.
Ew, it's got that elf stink on it.
It does. It stinks of elves, which I imagined is pleasant like lavender.
I
At any
disagree.
rate, their farts are the smells of fresh bakery, fresh cinnamon rolls or whatever.
Ooh.
At any rate, they're all sitting in contempt of him. And he sentences him to death because he refuses to renounce the queen.
I love the death they're going to sentence him to. I'm so excited.
Well, because they have the side conversation. I think it's about, apparently the son screwed up really badly because Farazan's like, shut up.
You've done quite enough.
But he's like, well, if he wants to believe in the old stuff, then we can sentence him according to the old laws. Which apparently means throwing him into a wave pool and letting him be eaten by the Kraken.
By a sea monster.
And
Oh,
to our,
God.
to our favorite character, the stranger.
Yeah.
And they
Tom
have a
Bombadil, I hate you so fucking much. Oh my god.
Well, narratively, he's playing a guiding mentor role.
Yeah.
Lore-wise, it doesn't make sense. Tom Bombadil wouldn't give a flying fart about the goings-on of the elves and men or whatever.
No.
But anyway, they have a discussion about the secret fire, which is secret, and I don't know why he doesn't know about it already. But
well,
go ahead.
What's really interesting is he's like, "Tell me, how do I master the secret fire?" And later, you know that he claims to be a servant of the secret fire, and so it's like,
Ooh,
okay,
commercial.
Thursday Night Football.
Woo!
Woo!
I gotta let this commercial run. Anyway, thoughts so far? Silver, you want to weigh in on the discussion?
I mean, nothing that hasn't already been said. I have more thoughts later into the show, really.
Ooh.
Mainly one specific scene that
Yeah.
maybe it's just me that confused me, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. Well,
mostly
we are.
for me, this was another episode where it was just, boredom for the most part.
Sweet.
I was saying that to Red earlier. This show is getting harder to watch in a way, not in like a oh my god this is so bad it's like hurting me to watch, but in like my god this is kind of boring. And these parts right here with the stranger and the fucking hobbits are perhaps the worst offenders.
I agree.
the thing
The
is-
Harfoots are awful.
Yeah, Harfoots are awful. The stores are awful. Yeah.
The store.
We have a comment from Sage who says, I have to point out that the old ways of the country was always elvish. They wouldn't toss anyone to a monster. Aaron Sprowski wouldn't really start a civilization with that tradition. Well, you're asking for logical lore. Right?
The show has proven that they hate that and they will not do it.
Well, look, this was the problem we had in the first season and we've had in the second season where we keep pointing at lore issues where this doesn't make logical sense connected to the lore. But if we do that, we fall into a pit of despair from which we shall never return. The problem we have to deal with is the internal logic of Rings of Power. So this is Rings of Power world. And in Rings of Power world, apparently the elves, Elrond's brother, set up a situation where people are punished by throwing them to the Kraken.
Maybe he didn't go become a star or whatever. Like maybe that's actually
Well, that was his dad.
Maybe his dad became a sea monster.
Yeah. You get to be my
Maybe that's what it
father if
is.
you've committed horrific enough a crime.
He's gonna eat you.
The elven word for star is also the word for Kraken. It's a little confusion in the text.
It's very we kind of messed up the translation. I'm gonna be honest.
Sage says, "I feel like Artax in the swamp." So you're gonna traumatize all the children? Is what you're gonna do?
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm not opposed.
Kids
let's
walking
try.
away with the dead horse, going, "No."
No.
It's not like the Rings of Power needs help traumatizing people.
Well, intellectually, I suppose. Yes. Emotionally, it's hard to get attached.
Yes.
Yes.
At,
to say the
at any
least.
rate, we got Harfoot conversations. She basically this is Stewers, and the Stewer head of the Stewers, who are river people, by the way, and living in about the farthest off the map you can possibly go. Who at no point is there any evidence of the hobbits ever going that far east. Anyway, Mom of the Stewers is explaining to Snorri that what homes are. If you recall this conversation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were like, she was like amazed that you could have one place to live. Like what? Like they haven't passed by villages and stuff that humans have. Like it's so strange.
Look at this single tier. Good for you.
Get that acting in. You act the hell out of this scene.
This scene doesn't deserve the effort, young lady.
No.
But yes, talks to her. I guarantee you, Nori establishes Hobbiton. She is the founder of Hobbiton.
Yeah.
I guarantee you.
Baggins.
Despite the fact in the lore, Hobbiton was given to them by a king, with the only mandate that they maintain a bridge. But all right.
Can I just say, and this is not any fault. Like this is purely a fault of how production on television shows work now. But this actress has like she's a woman now, and I don't mean that in a gross sense, but like her face is clearly an adult now, where she looked like a teenager last time we saw her, like in the last season.
There's been some speculation that they have been doing her makeup differently to make her look hotter.
That's fucking bizarre. That is because she looks so different now. Because before even earlier, almost in the season, it seemed like
chubby baby
but especially much more baby faced, and now like she's got like this jawline going on. Like she looks like a grown ass person, and I it's strange. I don't understand what's happening. Why I mean, look, I understand she's actually aging in real life, but you'd think they do the makeup to not show that off. But apparently not. It's just so distracting.
You're drawn in by her giant eyes, which they need to copy because what's his name in the other movie? Anyway. Then we get Poppy and the shipping we've all been waiting for.
Oh my god.
Again, another superfluous scene that we don't need.
And I don't mean to be rude to this actor guy playing this.
Look at his smoldering image. His I guess actor image that he has on IMDb compared to.
He looks like a fucking freak here. He looks like oh my god, he's horrible to look upon.
Well, I just like Poppy like side-eyeing in and going like, I fancy that. The guy with no name who looks like a homeless person.
Yeah, who looks like a freak.
But we get shipping 100% where they have this little conversation, and they talk about how he didn't really get a name because his parents took forever to name him. so he's nobody.
Yep.
And they kiss, and to
Oh my
emphasize how grody the hobbits, the Harfoots and Stewards are, she asks if he ate a lizard recently. Just to remember that orcs are eating baked potatoes and berries.
Hand-washed delicacies with their orc fingers.
And a comment I like from Sage, she can fix him.
Yeah, she
Oh,
can
gosh.
fix him.
About the only thing
Jesus.
she needs to do is make him take a bath, but
Oh my god.
she kind
The
of needs
dream-
one of those
The
herself.
dream of every woman.
She can fix him.
I'm going to get myself a hobo and make him to something.
I'm gonna turn him into a man. God.
And they have an interesting conversation here between Nori and Poppy, where they're basically talking about the fate of the world and whether or not it's actually. I don't know how to summarize this. It's essentially suggested it's like, oh, are we doing something important? And she's like, really important. Like she suddenly realized that, I guess, not Gandalf is a big deal, as if she hadn't seen him casting spells.
Yeah, and falling out of the fucking sky like a meteor. Like, what are you slow? Like, I literally think my note here. Hold on. Let me
All right.
get my notes. Oh god, I lost it. So hobbits are just retarded. That was my note.
Apparently so.
Apparently
Most
they are
people
just
on this
like,
show.
oh my god. I mean, man, who knew the guy that fell out of the sky like a meteor was important and had magic that I've never seen before? Jesus Christ.
Tom Bombadil drags the stranger onto a rock.
You failed every other trial. Now here's this trial you're gonna have to win. Find your stick.
Yes.
Dick Elf.
I was slightly confused by this conversation. Could somebody help me out with
Me
this?
too.
Probably not.
Let's give it a go.
Silver, I command you to explain what was going on.
Ugh. Okay. Let me remember the conversation here because my gosh.
All right.
It does seem that when he was talking to Tom Bombadil here, he's like, I've been having visions. Are they it seems like they were trying to be Dickensian here. Where he's like, are these shadows of things that may only come to pass, or are they,
Also,
Well,
where
am
is
I
being
wrong?
the
But was that a
future
quote
here?
from Lord of the Rings?
Literally.
I swear Frodo says something like that.
Yes, when he looks in the weird Galadriel pool, like reflecting bowl.
Yes! That's what it was!
Yes,
He asked
literally.
her the exact same question!
There's a lot of stealing
Oh.
quotes, by the way.
Oh,
You
yeah.
may not have noticed it, but your brain did.
But your brain did. Silver?
Okay, so as I recall what's happening in this conversation, he's like, you must find stick. You must
Uh-huh.
do it right now. Gandalf, or not Gandalf, is like, but my friend Nori, I have a feeling she's gonna die if I don't go help her now.
Oh, you mean
He's
Luke?
like-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Uh, and Tom is like, yeah, but the whole of Middle Earth needs you. The Dark Lord has his, or not the Dark Lord, the Dark
Darth Vader?
Wizard.
whatever. Yeah,
No, I'm sorry.
has
Go ahead.
his staff. You need to find yours. You know, there's stuff going on. But then, as I recall, not Gandalf just keeps reiterating, but Nori is friend.
And
I need to help
shares
Nori.
he shares a quote. Do you remember the quote?
Don't.
I don't.
Not all things that live, not all things that
Oh
die
my
deserve
God.
life.
Well,
Not all
that
things
one,
that
yes.
live deserve death. Is it up to
Yeah.
you to meted out to them. I'm paraphrasing. I'm getting the quote wrong. So here's the problem with this scene. Jason, can you look up that quote exactly?
Yeah.
Here's the problem with this scene. When that's shared to Frodo in the Mines of Moria in Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf is talking to him about Gollum.
Yep.
And he's saying the reason why, because Frodo is like, it's a pity he didn't kill Gollum. And Gandalf is like, no, pity stayed his hand. And the message being, we shouldn't just be murdering people simply because we have the power to.
Okay, I've got the quote.
Okay, go ahead.
Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? But do not be too eager to deal out death and judgment, for even the very wise cannot see all ends. I have not much hope that Gollum can be cured before he dies, but there's a chance of it. And he is bound up with the fate of the ring. My heart tells me that he has some part yet to play, for good or ill, before the end. And when that comes, the pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of many, yours not least.
Okay, so what Gandalf is talking about is pity and I guess mercy, right?
Yeah.
And not knowing the future of future events. Basically arguing as to why Bilbo didn't murder him. This scene is a massive problem because Bombadil uses that to justify letting Nori die. And there's a big difference between the two because the quote is meant to say, hey, it isn't just because you have the power to murder doesn't mean you should. And mercy is a factor, and you don't know what role people will play in the future, that they might find forgiveness or they might find redemption. Bombadil saying, don't go save your friend. Maybe she's meant to die.
It's the whole Superman thing all over again.
Do you see the massive difference? It's almost like the writers didn't actually understand the quote in the first place. And using it in this moment is so bad with what they're trying to say. I cannot describe to you how incorrect sort of what the quote is intended to say, and he's using that as a way to go, well, maybe your friend should die. It's like, excuse me? The quote is meant to be, maybe you should give mercy because you don't know if people can redeem themselves or what their future might hold. Or he's saying, some people don't deserve to die, like your friend.
Well, literally, he's like, because, yeah, like you said, like Gandalf's talking about, like, hey, he may still have a part to play. Like, yeah, he seems like a horrible freak that shouldn't live, but who knows? He could be useful. We don't know. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. In this case, he's like, oh, it's just a little Harfoot. It doesn't matter. Let her die. And it's like, what?
Almost
you
like
got bigger stuff to worry about.
Well, it's almost like the writers interpret the quote as fate will decide who lives or dies, as opposed to the quote meant mercy because you don't know what people will turn into, or you know what. Like it is such a fundamental misunderstanding of Tolkien and what he was saying. I cannot describe how bad this scene is.
It's so stupid.
It is
Look at his
offensively
stupid
bad.
face. Oh, God. After just saying that stupid quote.
Oh, by the
my
way,
God.
this is a merry old fellow.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, he sure
Entire
is.
old fellow.
So is everybody with me on my criticism? Any?
Oh yeah.
No, 100%.
I wish
You're
I could
right.
pick up on that.
It's. I thought, you know what? I'm so stupid. I mean, not to be rude to myself, but like, I knew that quote was from Lord of the Rings, and I forgot how much more of it there was. And it was literally a case of I didn't recognize it, but my brain did, and I realize now why that scene bothered me so much.
Yeah, because
And
it's
why
wrong.
it just like completely turned me off. Yes, it's just completely wrong.
Oh, and by the way, I'm getting a lot of Empire Strikes Back in this scene. I have to go save my friends.
Yes.
Save them, you might,
complete
but
for training.
Complete your training, you must. Find your gaffer, you should. Does
Go
anyone
find your
get
magic
that?
stick.
I've got to go save Han Solo and
Oh,
Leia.
yeah. Literally.
And he's having
yes.
visions of the future, giving
Oh
him
my
indication he needs to say.
Oh, no. Uh-oh. Where can one learn this power? Not from a Jedi.
Is he going to go into a cave and see his own face after killing the dark wizard?
Wizard. Ooh, maybe. Oh, my, Rhett, if they do that. Oh, my God, Rhett, if they do that.
So what if they do that? You got to crap your pants?
I'm gonna be so excited. I'm gonna write a very nice letter to Mr. Payne and McKay, and be like, "Your show is brilliant, and you people are just so amazing. I love that you had the balls, the cojones, to just outright copy one of the more popular sci-fi films ever made, that all of nerddom knows inside and out. Sir, you are bold, you are brave, you are beautiful."
We have a comment from Sage. I totally feel like Tolkien was looking back at men who did horrible things in World War I and still deserve to scrape together their lives the best they can. I'm sure there was a reflection in that in his commentary. Because sometimes, I mean, it just is a human situation. Sometimes we demonize people into such a way that we feel that they should die. But we don't know what people will become or what lives they deserve to lead. And simply because we can doesn't mean we should be meting out death and destruction. Because we are we wise enough to give out those things, sort of thing. And so I'm sure there's reflection on his life and seeing death and destruction and reflection of that. I mean, it's a well thought out comment. But anyway, Luke Skywalker's talking to Yoda, and Yoda's like, "Don't go save your friends. You're training. Also, you need the stick, but you can only..." Didn't at some point he makes a comment, it's like, "I need a stick." And he's like, "You got all the time in the world to find a stick?" And then they go out here, and he's like, "This is the only chance you have to find your stick?"
Yep.
Yeah.
The only dry, arid valley where you can get a magic stick.
He has this one chance that can last for all time.
One chance, one opportunity.
You're struggling to get some logic out of those two statements. Because he literally says, "You have all the time in the world to find your stick," and then later he's like, "This is your only chance to find your stick."
But you have all the time in the world with this one chance.
I guess.
Yes, it is stupid.
As long as he never leaves this valley, he can keep looking.
You know, there's a feeling, some on in other shows, because I've listened to some reviews of this. There's a feeling that what this is probably supposed to be doing, I don't know if I agree, is Bombadil is testing him to see if he's going to turn out like the Dark Wizard. If he chooses to save Nori or he chooses power, we'll have to see. Yeah. I can't say I could predict where the show is going, is the problem.
Yeah.
At any rate, we're moving forward. Dwarves. And dwarves are hauling stuff around, and so much gold it's falling out of their barrels. And here's the king, and he's all like, gold. And his son walks up. And, hey,
wait,
look,
can we see the mining?
I don't recall.
Okay, so it's later. All right, keep going.
Anyway, Anatar's here. And he's really bitter and suspicious of him.
As he should be.
Well, because of the ring, I guess. Because his dad's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And he's asking for Mithril. And he's offering him wood and resources and all the possible things that they could have. And he drops the precious line.
Oh my god.
It's like, or something more precious?
Hmm.
At any rate, much to Durin Jr.'s reaction, Durin Sr. says no. And he hopes his dad is giving the sense about him, and Halbrand leaves. And Durin Jr. is like, I thought you lost all your senses. And Durin Sr. is like, they'll pay more because they really need it.
Then I'll get more.
Because he's getting mega greedy.
Oh, I love it. The mega greed.
And he's like, we're going to dig lower. And his son's really upset that his dad's gone insane. They're really leaning on this ring thing. What's that, Jason?
Yeah. I was going to say, one of the things lore-wise that obviously that they don't care about, but the rings had very little effect on the dwarves as far as corruption went.
Yep.
Because dwarves were very, very stubborn.
But now they're saying that the rings were the reason why they got the gold crazy, the gold madness.
Well, and here's the problem, Jason. They're not talking to people who know the lore. They're talking to people who watch the movies. And when they watch the movies, they know that these rings give you weird obsession things, or at least the one ring did. And so they're just going, oh, well, people know that the rings make you weird, so we're just going to do that. Even though in the lore, it didn't really do that to the dwarves, but oh well.
Yeah.
Well,
things.
His son is starting to say, well, it's taking you over, and you're going crazy. And Dad gets upset, so he tries to take it off of him, and apparently Durin the Third has mega powers from the ring.
The ring makes him super strong. He just hulks his ass out of there.
He really does. And he gets home and talks to Disa, who we got a crazy face for this image.
Disa. Oh, so annoying.
Yeah, she's awful. And she basically talks to Durin the Fourth, saying we need to do everything we can to stop these things because I heard rumblings underground. Because I heard something, and the water was kind of weird because I yelled at the water and then something rumbled and I got really upset and we need to stop digging. The results of this conversation essentially is she suggests we need to start a rebellion and we need to put ourselves in front of the bulldozers to stop the tearing down of the community center.
Yeah. We're going to save the city. I like how she's talking about violently overthrowing this man's father that she's married to.
And look, there is some acting in the scene where Durin is getting emotional and he's like, I can't do that to my father. I would point out the previous scene where he lost his status as the prince, where he yelled at his dad and did fight against him and called him an old fool who was incompetent. And now he's like, I can't resist my dad. That would be awful.
Yeah, bit of a change.
Yep. But she's intent on him, I guess, preventing further digging. You know, one thing that I thought about. Can anybody help me with this? What happened to their kids?
They're not necessary right now.
Her mothers.
But narratively, wouldn't this serve a purpose in the conversations of we need to do this for our children? Wouldn't that be at the forefront of their thoughts?
That would make it more interesting, yes, and it would tie into their characterization that we saw last season, where they were a loving dwarf family when Elrond was coming over for dinner.
Yeah,
and but no, it's child actors is hard, so get them the fuck out of here because we got to save some money. So, and by the way, I just did you notice that she talks about how Durin the Third is more like a father to her than her own?
Than her own father, yeah.
How come the Black Dwarf got to have dad problems? Fuck's that about?
He left to get menthol cigarettes. And
yeah, like what? Did he have to go up to the top side to get some menthol cigarettes and milk? Like, what's happening? What's going on? Why are we doing that? And also, it was in the last scene. There's a scene where the dwarves are mining under, like these random dwarves are mining, And then there's wheelbarrows wheeling up to Durin the Third and like dumping out gold and jewels and things but like gold coins. And it's
Yeah.
just a really funny cut because it implies that they're just like digging for the coins and like the perfectly cut gems. I don't know. It was just
well, with how poorly cut the gems are in the Rings of Power.
Like, it's just so funny to me. Like, anyway, so this is what we're looking for, I guess. We get you some
Gold coins
gold
come tumbling out of the cracks in the mountain.
Yeah, it's just the implication's very funny with the way.
Where did you think they came from?
They could have had just one insert shot where they're smelting. That's would have worked just fine. But I guess that was a bridge too far.
Well, Sage says
Nobody
they ran
would
away with
understand what they were doing.
Sage says they ran away with the helmet to go start a sumo-style fighting ring. Awesome.
Oh, hell yeah.
Well, Douche is talking to Elendil, the cuck, I guess. And she's basically talking down to him by stop being prideful. It feels like this conversation is very cliche when it comes to film.
So cliche.
The woman talking to the guy of like, it's your pride. Because of your stupid male pride. Why don't you give up your stupid male pride? And I mean,
which is funny because that's never been a part of this particular one. At least with the dwarves, it kind of was at different points, like with Durin the Third and the Fourth.
Yeah.
But there's no pride involved in this. He is a man of a certain faith. Like what does that? Whatever.
Well, it's just such a cliche that you see women in shows be like, "Give up your pride," and it's like as opposed to. Like, if the implication is abase yourself, ask for forgiveness, and you'll get out of this, and it's like, if pride is such an issue, and this is going to sound crass, why don't you go sleep with our Farazan and grant the forgiveness? Well, I wouldn't do that. Well, give up your pride, woman.
Yeah.
Abase yourself before him and just diddle that man so he forgives your father.
Oh, God.
Well, you know what I mean? It's like such a silly thing to sit on your high horse and talk down to your father by not giving up on his faith he's had his entire life. And then it's like, well, if pride is not an issue for you because you're just better than him, well, then just go whore yourself out to raise the money to buy his bond or, it's just like, oh, give up your pride, woman. Goodness. Anyway,
she got so offended.
Yeah, well, he basically says, you won't understand. And she goes, our Farazan said you would say that, which is weirdly specific that he would be able to predict. He said your hatred for him would become hatred for me. Yeah.
He doesn't hate you, stupid. He just gave you a hug.
She's horrifically dumb.
Oh, dude, she's the dumbest character. I like how they're like prior to this season releasing, they're like, yeah, this is, we got women directors, and this is going to be about like there's just such strong female characters, and this is one of them. Jesus H, she's dumber than Galadriel last season, and that's fucking saying something. You know what our problem might be? We're thinking at this scene as men. Like, this doesn't make sense logically. Silver, does this make sense emotionally? Think of this through an emotional lens. She's upset, her dad won't respond, go.
My thought that I had through this entire thing would be how a daughter would go up to him and not say something like, swallow your pride. She would most likely would have said something like, won't you just give in to it to stay with me? Stay alive, stay with me after losing my brother? Yeah. Something like that, instead of
make a personal.
Like, you're the only one I have left, you're the only family I have left, won't you stay for me, won't you do this? Instead of swallow your pride.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah, very good, yeah.
That was my main thought throughout that whole thing. I'm like, you idiot!
I hadn't even thought of that would make way more sense. And
It's
also
like as a
probably more
father,
effective.
he may have changed his mind and been like, you know what, you're right, I need to be here for my daughter. But
Even if she is a loathsome douche.
yeah,
Sometimes the diversity hire adds something to the podcast. You know?
Hey, we gotta get them
sometimes.
kaiju points, baby.
Kaiju points. Well, she's just so upset with him. Her righteous indignation. Anyway, she gets replaced by the queen, and they have a little intimate moment. I struggled with that word. It's late, dude.
It's very late.
Well, and they have this conversation, and she's like, "Don't do it for me. Your pride, I guess." She's also trying. She's trying her best to cry,
This can
which the
only
show doesn't
be-
deserve.
No.
I mean, this doesn't make sense. But why would Farazan agree to this unless it served his purpose? You know what I mean? He wouldn't
Yeah.
care. Like what? I'm getting rid of somebody who's a rebel. I don't like him, you know. But apparently, some reason that we don't know or don't understand doesn't make sense. Farazan is saying, you know what? I really need to get this guy under my heel. I guess he thinks maybe he could become a martyr. I don't know.
What you mean under his heel, like as a follower of his, or dead
Well,
and out of the way?
at least well, if he gets killed, then people could raise him up as a martyr. But if he yields to Farazan and says, "No, you're the real king," then that's like the ringleader of the rebels is saying I'm the king. So the rebellion against him, the people who don't support him, the people who think that he kind of usurped the throne here. But
So the superficial, dumb perspective would be that our Farazan is just crushing people who oppose him and getting. He's just comically tyrannical.
twirling his mustache and
Right. The other conclusion might be that Elendil has a lot of status because he's a captain and he holds a lot of respect among the Sea Guard and the followers of the Queen. The problem with that is they haven't really demonstrated that deep love
Exactly.
that the soldiers have for him. They just kind of say they do. Because you could have had things like he knows their names, he's familiar with the Sea Guard, he's personable, they trust him implicitly, but they haven't gone through the work of giving us those little moments to sell Elendil having this grand respect for that the troops have for him. But I guess they're just saying he represents a whole lot and it's really important. Fine. The purposes of executing the man is to prove that basically insurrection can't be tolerated and we have to get rid of him. But he's going to do this for his own purposes where it's like, look, the problem is the Queen and the worshippers of the Valar. And if you execute him in such a way where you turn him over to the fate of the Valar, then you can undermine the faith of the faithful and in the process get rid of somebody who's undermining your rule. So it's a win-win. And my guess is his assumption is there's no downside to throwing him into a pool and letting him die. Which is...
yeah, he sees no downside. Yeah, very much
right,
so.
right. Now, there's a few problems with this. And we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but we're going to address it right now. So he's doing this because his assumption is it's going to be successful. That there's no downside. Now, you could make that assumption that he's going to be successful based upon the fact that whenever this has been done in the past as a form of execution, they've always died. So in his mind, there's no possible way of him having forgiveness of the Valar, if you will. Because if there's a possibility he gets out of it, there's no way he would have allowed this to go through.
Right.
So his assumption that it's going to undermine the faithful and he's going to die and it's guaranteed, blah, blah, blah. However, considering everything that happens, even if the Valar do kill him, the faithful don't seem like their faith is easily swayed by the Valar don't show up and save the captain. So it's not really going to undermine the faithful, as far as I can tell, because they seem committed to believing in the Valar, as far as I can tell.
Not unless he starts chucking the faithful in.
By the way, it's a little bold of a man whose entire position was made by a random giant creature showing up.
That landed in the window,
Not like he's risking a lot, considering like the same could happen to this guy. A giant creature could show up and prove him to be correct.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing. In the rare, weird possibility that the grand kaiju monster comes out of nowhere and somehow frees him, it would be so damaging to his position and cause that it would be almost unrecoverable. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Considering how he got power, yeah, totally.
Well, then let's follow on. We are in Moria, and we've got... I hate this scene so much.
Why?
Oh my gosh, I
Is it
hate this
corny
too.
and stupid? What do you mean?
Suddenly she gets the ability to summon bats.
Well,
Why on
well,
earth would
before
the
we get
dwarves be
there,
afraid of bats?
Princess Disa is blocking the tearing down of the old fern tree or whatever, the mining, and she's protesting like a champ, and decides to yell at them, which one assumes would be trying to scare them away, but they're dwarves, so they don't really scare easily. And it's kind of a weird scene where she starts screaming at them. I guarantee you they thought this was really cool. Her belting like an opera singer. I guarantee you.
Oh, yeah.
But they give the I'm confused, and she's like, well, it's not supposed to scare you. I possess the power to summon bats.
God.
Dumb.
Get it? Because bats use echolocation, so she can use noise to make the bats do the thing.
She has powers of summoning.
God.
And then the dwarves, who you would assume know that there are bats in these caves.
Have dealt with bats in the past, I would guess so.
One would assume
Exactly.
so.
They'd be like, "Why are you summoning bats at us?" And they would just stand there.
Stop it.
Well, not only that, but they run away. But I guess the assumption is they never return because they're just too afraid of those bats.
Well, no. Durin has a line here that's like, "They'll come back with more people." And
Well,
she's like, "We'll do something else."
The moment I cringed at the most was when he turned and looked at her and he's like, I love you so much. And I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Because he's turning at her, it's like, you're so badass. Oh my gosh.
You know,
And
So-
the newly named
She can't
Caprex
really-
says, it reminds me of a Disney princess. I would agree. Except not as
She can't-
elegant or dainty or attractive or interesting. Anyway.
So obviously she can't really summon bats, but
I'm going to believe
how
she's
on
something
earth does she know that the bats are even there
It was
and will come when she starts screaming?
Because she's done it before. Maybe this is the thing they learn when they're
They have
young
secret
singing
bat-
people.
Yeah, the singing priestesses have the ability to summon bats and look for holes that they can mine in.
It's just-
I guess.
Yeah, it's just another one of the stupid coincidences that if it fell apart, it's like, oh, it works because she's doing it. Like, oh, stupid.
I like the I like the comparison because it reminds me of Snow White, like singing to herself and the birds landing on her shoulder. Instead, it's decent and horrific bats come flying down and
Enormous bats.
just drooling and
Pooping everywhere.
Actually, you know what it is? It's the scene from, it was it Shrek 3.
where she blows up the
When-
sparrow.
No,
that's the
when
first
Snow
one.
White's there and they're
First one.
attacking the castle or whatever, and she starts like screaming, and a bunch of woodland creatures come out of the woods and start attacking.
There's a movie, I forget what it's called, but the princess gets transported to the real world and she starts singing to get the animals to clean the apartment that she's in, and she
Yeah,
summons like rats and cockroaches and
Yeah, it's the real life Disney princess movie. I forget.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I refuse to watch it on principle.
Something like Enchanted or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Well, here we are going to throw him in our guaranteed form of execution.
yeah.
And we've got old Elendil, and they're like, abase yourself and find forgiveness. And he's like, no. And then the queen shows up. And this is not an attractive still screen, but we're going to stop here. And the queen shows up, and then there becomes... Cat Brooks says Enchanted. That's the name. Well,
Yep, that's
right. It's possible there's someone in the background that let her down, but there are immediate questions of how did she get down here?
Yeah.
all of the noise.
She stumbled. A lot of stumbling.
She should be covered in dirt, have a blood gash on her arm or something.
And she says, if we're following the old laws, because he is punished for my sake, I could stand in his stead. And he's like, no. And she takes away his agency as a noble sacrifice and does it herself. In the Talking Dead version of this show, the after show where they talk about it, the director of this episode talked about how this pool scene was the hardest scene to direct. Mainly because they had to wait for like low tide or high tide or something.
Oh, sure.
Because it was really like the water was moving.
They didn't
around
just
a lot.
do this in a tank?
No.
Okay.
It's an actual place, I guess.
Jesus Christ.
But Muriel gets in the water. And they see the bump of the Kraken. Unleash the Kraken. And she's facing it nobly, even though she can't see it. Which might... And she gets dragged underneath the water. I was speculating here that part of the reason why the Kraken might be freeing her because of her bravery is because she can't see the thing.
Can't see the thing.
So it
She's
just
not afraid
throws her
of
back
it.
up.
See it.
That might be a factor in whether or not you get let
Maybe.
go. Let's see. It has the guy from Grey's Anatomy lowered down on ropes. Oh. Here's the Kraken. And the worst possible outcome is Muriel gets spit out back onto land.
Damn,
Okay.
been lost.
This is the scene where I had probably the most problems because I have no idea what they're trying to do here. We had the scene earlier where Farazan usurps the throne because the eagle shows up at a coronation and he jumps on it and is like, "Oh, it's here for me, not her." Even though the thing is that the eagle's supposed to show up at a coronation. And now we have proof that the Valar approve of Muriel and Elendil.
Uh-huh.
So are they trying to build up to a civil war between the two factions or
Probably.
or what's going on here? Because the more compelling story is that the reason that Numenor was destroyed was they decided to try to attack the gods.
Yeah. Well, they also turned to like Morgoth worship and stuff, but this happened over a long period of time with the influence of Sauron whispering in people's ears. So yeah.
So the real reason now that Numenor is destroyed is Well, an eagle showed up at Fair, and Farazan decided that it meant that he was supposed to be the king, and now we have proof that the Valar approve of these two. So apparently, we're going to have
A
Muriel's
contention
side
of
and
rulership.
Farazan's side, and stupid.
Well, look. In the original writing, our Farazan is a scheming political manipulator who takes the throne from Muriel by forcing her into a marriage, and then she goes away. But the problem is that takes away the agency of the strong female character. So now she has to be queen, but then he can't outsmart her. He has to win it accidentally from a bird.
Yeah.
So it becomes less clever and interesting where he schemes his way into taking over, and now he just kind of accidentally takes over. And now they're undermining that by she just happens to be saved by the undersea kraken, so it completely undermines his claim to rule, which was solely built upon the fact a bird, I guess, landed on the windowsill.
Yeah.
It really screwed up the really interesting story that could have occurred here with the political machinations inside Numenor, which should have been the entire like you could have had this like Game of Thrones-esque political drama that lasted for 5 seasons in Numenor. Mm-hmm. But they summarized a story and got it wrong to try and make it look like she wasn't undermined by a guy who was more clever, that she had her own agency, was a super strong woman, and he just kind of fumbled his way into taking over and puts himself into a position which destroys his claim on the throne because of all possible scenarios that he didn't think could happen, she gets spit out by the sea.
Well, he originally wanted to give him an ironic death, but then it turned out it didn't work out that way. Man, if only he would have just done the thing and killed him anyway. Oh, well.
Yeah. This is a horrible outcome for him. They're calling her the Queen of the Sea in this scenario. This couldn't be worse. It undermines him. Up. It undermines his faction. It undermines the Elendil's daughter. And his conclusion is, remember that Edadian had an issue with the dirty elf stuff? Well, he goes out and touches it. And he sees some things. Anyway, Galadriel is teary-eyed and emotional as she happens to be. And she reveals more information to Adar. She talks about her ring. My ring, my precious.
Precious. Mm-hmm.
And there becomes this massive discussion between the two about Sauron's manipulation and who was Sauron manipulating. That's the crux of this conversation. Am I wrong?
No, yeah. You're right.
She's like, let's work together. And he's like, why? You gave me everything I need. She even told him where the ring is. And who has it?
Yeah.
She's smartest in the world. At any rate.
She is the smartest general. Listen, if she'd been captured, she would have never... Oh, wait, no. She sang like a bird. Oops.
And she's
lived for 1,000 years and can't figure out how to resist telling people most basic information you shouldn't say.
Commander of the Northern Armies. 8 people.
Yeah. 8 whole ass elves.
An army in and of themselves. And the conversation ends up being this back and forth of like, you're falling into Sauron's plans. And he's like, no, you're falling into Sauron's plans.
No, you.
That's mostly what I got at. Am I oversimplifying this conversation?
No, yeah.
No, I mean, there is one point that I would bring up about he asks if they were to side with each other to destroy Sauron, if that would then make the High King of the elves
Not
decided
murder
not
all the
to invade
orcs?
Mordor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
No.
like, no.
You're dirty. We don't like you. We're racist. Orcs must die.
The thing is that orcs destroy everything they touch. They eat people. I just don't think that there is a way for you to say, look, we'll just be down here minding our own business in Mordor. We won't eat any of you guys anymore. We'll totally turn into peaceful, fun-loving, ugly
After the
people. I
Southlands
don't know.
genocide? No.
Yeah.
You have a point, but we've discussed the trying to portray the orcs as sympathetic or Sauron as sympathetic, or they like to flirt with that evil is misunderstood nonsense. Ross, how many is in a legion?
1,000, ain't it?
4,500 to 6.
Oh yeah. Well, you can tell I know good stuff.
How many orcs have you seen in his army?
At most 200.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if I'm really counting every single head, maybe 200. I bet it's not even that.
Well, she says it's going to take more than a legion to lay siege to a region. And he's like, I've got many legions. And they have this cut. Let's see if I can't get a good crop of that scene where they look over the city or the grass. It's really hard to get that there. How many does this look like gathered around some random bonfires?
I don't know. Not a ton, if I'm honest. I don't know. Like that's
Because he said legions, and I was like, that looks like hundreds.
Yeah, that's a few hundred more maybe. This show has a problem with like really murky, dark scenes, though. Have you noticed
It
that?
does, yeah.
Really
when
bad
when I
about it.
watched the show, I turned the brightness up all the way on my tablet. But I mean, you could argue that there are crowds of orcs there, so they're kind of hidden in the trees and whatnot. There's more than maybe you can see there because this is like you've said, this is kind of a muddy scene. But still, we've never. If he actually had that many thousands of orcs, the Numenorians and stuff would never have been an issue at all.
No, ever. Maybe it just
As,
took a while to gather them. It's like the Rohirrim in the movies. It took
and
a
as
while to gather them.
Cap Cruz points
And
out,
maybe.
it's Helm's Deep and a fun little callback.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, this is Saruman standing next to Wormtongue.
Wormtongue, yeah.
Except they're not highly organized into mass groups of people. They're a bunch of rabble, like wandering around.
Galadriel's Wormtongue in this case. How embarrassing!
She wishes she was as moral as Wormtongue.
God damn.
And he's like, Eregion will fall, and she's supposed to be horrified. I would have expected, maybe this is nitpicking, but I would have expected a grander display of power. We've got another sour face Morphic Clark here. And her whole claim to you shouldn't attack Eregion is because you're falling into Sauron's design.
Which he is.
To surround Sauron, perhaps accidentally catch him unawares and murder him again. Because if this is Sauron's design, it's a poor design?
Well, the one thing I was going to say is, were this a more convincing Sauron as far as like a master manipulator, and like, because I think the idea being you brought this army to him, and now he's going to take it from you, which.
But
why
needs the One Ring in the logic of the show.
Yeah, he could just go, like, he could have done things smarter, not brought them to him when he's trying to get this done, and then just go back into Mordor. Like
Because
he knew where the orcs were always going to be.
He can only make the One Ring in Mordor.
Yeah,
Right.
well, exactly. Maybe that's what he's got to get him out of there, so then he can go sneak back into Mordor to make the ring. Maybe that's what it is.
I mean, obviously he wants the orcs to destroy Eregion. So,
To cover
But
his
why?
but it should be that the orcs arrive at Eregion, and Sauron is no longer anywhere near the place. That he's been gone for months at this point in time.
Well,
at
here
least.
let's philosophize. Why would he want it destroyed?
So that he
To
can-
potentially cover up, I guess they were making the rings.
Yeah, he's trying to cover that up.
So nobody else knows that 9 rings of men were made? Is that the idea?
Yeah,
It would require killing every last person in the city,
exactly.
I guess, to perhaps cover it up efficiently. Or more like a dozen people who have direct knowledge of it. This seems overkill.
going-
Like they think this is clever that he
He's going
designed this
for the
whole thing.
nuclear option.
But they make it sound like this is some sort of Moriarty-esque scheme unfolding before us. Maybe the show
Well, 'cause it-
has something else
'cause
we're
it
not aware
is.
of. Yeah, okay,
Maybe
Ross.
he's just so smart. He's just gonna. I mean, that's what they're going for, right? I mean, obviously, but and that would again, I almost like that idea to some degree, but then it's like when you add everything else together, it's like, wait, but this, oh no, it's terrible. Never mind. Like everything they've done, especially when you have to include, well, he's got to go back into Mordor anyway to make the One Ring, which would, in this show's logic, give him command over those orcs, because apparently this man is such a black hole of charisma that he can't even get a fucking orc to follow him.
Not one.
Not even one. They all shanked his ass.
And also, here's an issue. The amount of orcs... Look, elves are known for their sight, are they not?
Oh yes.
The nerve...
Yes, this is what I was gonna ask about.
The nerve to act like they came out of nowhere. That the elves were simply unaware of the thousands, I guess, according to Adar, but not presented visually to us, of orcs that are hiding in the forest that they just didn't know they were there. Like,
Yeah, you know.
they don't have patrols, they don't have people watching, they don't have warnings. Maybe they did know, but we're not being presented this information because Anatar is keeping the secret, but wasn't he just in Moria? How'd he get out if the city's surrounded? How do you get back in?
So close. They're so close to the city, by the way.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, wait. How? So Galadriel was traveling with Elrond. Where were they traveling from? Was it from here or was it from another place?
From
Linden.
From
Linden.
another place.
Okay, so I'm just thinking how Elrond booked it away with the ring. Wouldn't he go there for help and be like, Galadriel's out there? He's like, no, I'm just gonna head all the way back to Linden.
You're not wrong.
They're so close.
This is
He
where
could
they
have
were
just
trying
gone
to,
there.
but this was where they were trying to go. That was Elrond's goal. That was his mission sent to him by Gilgalad, was to come here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like a mile away.
It's how, yeah, again, the way this show is, it makes it feel that way, doesn't it?
But somehow, not only did they sneak up on the city, but they managed to gather in and build catapults without them being aware of the vast amount of noise that would have produced in production.
Especially the way orcs work.
And the amount of time it would have been required to produce these things. Once again, time and space is irrelevant because they click on the building and spend the points in this RPG and then they come out.
I love RTSs.
The way the siege plays out would require a massive amount of incompetence from the elves.
Oh yeah.
Well, we haven't seen very much competence in this show, so
This displays them like abject morons
Genuinely.
that
Yes.
manage their city in no such way as to defend it logically. They're so stupid that they're unaware that a army of quote unquote legions is amassed outside in the forest, that they have built catapults, so to speak, and rolled them up so close to the city that they're unprepared to deal with these things. A city this large that doesn't have an army large enough to actually really deal with these orcs in any capacity, that couldn't get information out to call for aid. No birds are sent. No competent soldiers to deal with this situation. And all of this under the guise that we're assuming that Anatar is able to keep this secret, even though he's buggering off on Day's journey to Moria 5 minutes ago. In that time, wouldn't his influence maybe go away? And some people,
And then everyone would come to their senses and be like, "Hey, wait a minute! I smell and see orc." Nah.
And I love that he sees what's transpiring and apparently performs blood magic, as far as I could tell, with no explanation to the cut on his hand.
Hey guys, I'm
Celebrimbor.
sorry I have to do this, but I gotta head out. I gotta work in the morning. So
All right, later. Celebrimbor, dutifully working on his ring, hearing screams outside his window, and Anatar intercepts him, and he's like, "Oh, don't look out there," despite the horror sounds. It's not that bad.
everything's fine. Nothing to see here. Move along.
Well, wouldn't he be like, "I'm just looking out the window"?
You need
Why
to get
is it
back
that
to
big
work,
a
lazy.
deal that he intercepts him from? Anyway. Well, and they have this conversation, and there are a lot of doubts. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, considering what happens next, I mean, it doesn't make any sense that he tells him not that he's like, "Don't look out the window."
Well, if he has the capacity to create such illusions, why would it matter that much? It would have been easier to fool him there than drag him downstairs to let him look outside. But he insists on going out the front door and seeing what's going on. And Sauron apparently is so powerful that he's able to create this illusion that we have not seen before. And if he had the capacity to do this, why wasn't he using this all along?
All the time.
At any rate, he looks outside and it's like, "Oh, look how amazing and peaceful everything is." Lest I remind you, Silver, it was nighttime.
Yes, it was.
What a strange
And-
oversight.
So in Beyond the Illusion, there's going to be a ton of people running by, going like, "Oh my gosh, there's orcs attacking." Isn't at least one of them gonna turn, see Celebrimbor there, and be like, "Oh my gosh, there he is! What should we do?" Run up
Touch
to him,
him.
get in his face, shake him, get him out of the illusion, and he'd be like, "Oh gosh, this is horrible. What's happening?"
But precisely shake him out of the illusion in some capacity.
Yeah, he just like, Sauron's like, "Ah, no one's gonna come up to him and touch him or something that would break the illusion."
And Anatar still desperately trying to get him to make the rings. Telling him everything's fine. Giving him the necessary mithril, even though they wouldn't give him any, but I guess he stole this.
He said he got it from Narvi.
Yeah, well.
Whether or
and,
not that's actually where he got it, who knows?
and gives him Feanor's hammer to use to finish it. And sends him along because he's desperately trying to get those rings finished. Now, I guarantee you that the showrunners thought this scene was really cool. Creating an illusion to cover up the violence and everything. It's not horrible, but there are issues with it. Like, is Celebrimbor so out of it that he can't tell that it was nighttime when he was in the tower and he walks outside and it's day suddenly? Is he so out of it that he's just simply unaware of those events transpiring?
He should
Possibly.
know, because he has windows in there. There would be sunlight streaming in if it was day.
I agree.
I mean, they did. They have said that he's forgetful and all this other stuff that is going on with his mind.
Yes, his
So
mind is going through the influence of Sauron, but yes.
yeah. So that I think that they're just going to wave it away.
I mean, there's
Due
a
to
lot
that
of
influence.
issues that would be waved away, but
Yeah.
I'm pointing out that there are logical inconsistencies that would have been easy to resolve. He could have just showed a nighttime scenery of everybody being happy.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be day? At any rate, everybody, when there's a crisis, people run back and forth on fire, I assume, and just things
And
ain't
panic.
going super well. And we get our glory shot of catapults firing flaming rocks at Eregion, and that's the end of the episode. Thoughts, Jason?
Well, there's two thoughts that I have. One, this is kind of taking place when the elves were still very powerful as far as military might goes, at least lore-wise. Here, uh, who knows? You can't really tell. I mean, they have soldiers and stuff, but it seems like all the soldiers, except for maybe the orcs and Arondir, are mostly incompetent and don't know how to do their jobs. It's like the orcs show up and everyone panics, including the soldiers who could have been trained to deal with this kind of stuff and are ancient and have been through hundreds of battles at this point. It's not like these people are teenagers and they're like, here, have a sword. You've never been in battle before. These are elves. They are immortal and they have been around for who knows how long. And they fought with Morgoth, who was arguably worse than Sauron. Most of
Well,
this
not
episode
arguably,
was,
but
yeah, most of this episode to me was just boring and filler. It didn't really seem to drive any plot forward or anything like that. And then there were like I said before, the one scene that I really had a problem with was the trial by Abyss, where uh, they've kind of said, "Look, we had an eagle come, and now we have this one," and it's just they're completely flip flopping back and forth on the kingship, the rulership of Numenor at this point, and it's just driving me nuts.
yeah, it's meant to destabilize them, I guess.
Yeah.
And I suppose you could explain a lot of the things that are going on in Eregion
Yeah.
in a very awkward way by Anatar. Sauron is so amazing at his manipulation. He's created a malaise over the city where they're just they aren't defending themselves properly. They're not aware of what's going on. The effort to competency is being lessened by Anatar / Sauron's influence. Okay. You could say that, but the problem is they haven't presented it such that it's given us the idea that he's so capable. He is literally influencing the city. And that's my problem is it's either the elves are just horrifically incompetent or Anatar is amazingly competent. But if he's amazingly competent, they need to display, they need to show us that and what he's capable of doing.
I mean, mostly what they've shown us is that the entirety of Middle Earth is plagued with massive amounts of incompetence. That's all they've shown us.
It feels like they think they did something clever. Like we're supposed to go, oh my gosh, look what they pulled off. But they haven't earned it. And the lack of earning it is a big problem. It's almost like telling a joke that's not funny and then turning to the screen and being like, and it's like no one's laughing. Silver, what did you think of the episode?
It was so full of logical inconsistencies, things that they could have completely taken out and it wouldn't have mattered. Like the whole thing with the hobbits and the stores, that brief thing that happened. The thing with I always forget his name. Fade Elf.
Oh yeah, Arendir.
Yeah, they could have taken that out. Even the stuff with Gandalf and Tom Bombadil, they could have gotten rid of that.
Yeah.
I felt like a lot of it was pointless. Like, come on. Do something that'll actually progress the story, and it happened only at the very end.
Yeah, so apparently I've heard that the battle is supposed to last 2 episodes.
My gosh.
And I think they expect that sort of action porn is supposed to excite the normies. It's going to be enough for to get them across the finish line, I suppose. The show is a massive lack of action. I would agree. We will have to see where this goes. This is one of those episodes where it's almost like I need to ruminate on it more. And come the next episode, I was like, what was going on? But at any rate, we talked about the episode. We sort of went through it painstakingly. And we appreciate you guys for coming along and chatting with us, Capris. Cap Cruz. At any rate, we need to get out of here. Kicking and screaming. Let's go to the outro.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DG Podcast or on Instagram at Distracted Gamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy.